housekeeping here. First up, this session is being recorded and will be posted to our website at a later date. I also want to mention that I am monitoring the chat on my second screen. So if you have questions as we go through this webinar, please feel free to ask them. I will do my best to fill those questions in throughout the conversation. Also, there's still time to register for our annual conference. This is set up to be the biggest event that ACUMA has ever hosted. Early bird savings end tomorrow. So if you haven't registered, please be sure to do so. You're not going to want to miss this one. Just looking at my list of things I have to go over, I think that's it for today. Today's ACUMA webinar is being brought to you by CU Members Mortgage. Joining us today is Steve Hewins. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for sponsoring today's event.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I think it's a perfect topic.
Thank you very much. We worked hard on it. Steve, I first want to start by saying, yes, you're sponsoring today's webinar, but you have been a big supporter of ACUMA and our members for several years now. It truly means a lot. I think your pledge to the credit union mortgage professional is being shown, and it's during my time here as president, it's been great getting to know you. Truly.
Agree. It's
so
a wonderful partnership.
Let's focus on today's topic, okay?
Yeah.
Today's topic is a realtor's viewpoint of our industry in a nutshell. We picked this topic because we often hear or read about what's going on in our market. Stats, figures, data trends. They all say something, but they don't always provide real insight into how our local markets are behaving. I think that's the key phrase: how our local markets are behaving. And so we thought it appropriate to hear firsthand what it's like. Really what it's like out there on the streets and how our credit unions can gain traction in a shrinking market. Okay, so that brings me back to you.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on a few things. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. So, realtors are the cornerstone of our real estate market. Can you tell me about your vision of our market and really, the ever-changing role that a realtor plays?
Yeah. I think the more, the real estate market is much like the mortgage market. They're really starting to face some disruptive forces and pressures. They have the emergence of new online technology. We have behaviors that were created during the COVID pandemic that have lingered and been adopted. Online brokerages have expanded, discount brokerages, they're all facing them, the real estate professionals. But even with all those disruptive pressures, the role of the realtor hasn't changed. They provide the education and guidance to potential homeowners from the very first meeting all the way through closing. They provide objective information about listings, the process, educate opinions about the changing market conditions locally, insights on the trends, available technologies, and then also just an understanding of the local community and any issues that may be present. Their presence in that transaction continues to really, for both the buyers and the sellers, guarantee them that they're going to have honesty and ethical treatment through the entire transaction. And so regardless of the disruptive pressures, they have to face those disruptive pressures head on. They need to continue to focus on bringing the value that personal experience brings. They need to bring in the online, have a cyber strategy or technology that really brings the convenience elements that users have the option to. And also just focus on their expertise, which a lot of the online brokerages don't bring to the table.
So, this is something that we've, you watched this, we discussed this. How have credit unions and realtors built successful relationships? Because really, that's part of any mortgage division's success is their relationship with the referral partners, right? So from your viewpoint, how have they built that successful relationship?
Yeah, how we partner with credit unions to do that, very simple. The requirements of a good relationship are very, very easy. Number one, close loans on time, be available, be available, be available. The speed and the speed and velocity that transactions happen today is so much different than it was in the past. It's all about minutes, not about hours and about days, but just the availability and consistent delivery. You've got to be consistent in how you're delivering services. Your realtor partners need to understand how you do business and that you are consistent, so they set the right expectations. The last thing you want them to do is be surprised, which brings me to the last thing to be a good partner is over communicate. Give them more information. I have never, ever in my 35 years of mortgage business, ever heard a realtor say that someone was over communicating to them. So the more communication you can provide, treating both your listing agent and your buyer agent the same, giving them as much information as possible. You do those four things, successful relationship.
Oh, that's amazing insight, and I appreciate you sharing that. So let's ask the question. Okay, well, what if you have a credit union that doesn't have these relationships? What's the best way for them to kickstart these relationships and really take advantage of what they bring to the table?
Yeah, I mean, first, I think you have to show that you're a participant in the mortgage space. You have to be visible 365 days around mortgage. It's not just being 1 month, a blurb in the newsletter once a year. You've got to be there year round so people have confidence. These deals are tough to come by, both for us as mortgage professionals and for our realtor partners. And you've got to really give them that confidence. So if you're not in the market, they're really going to question why. Two, you sell your unique position. Most credit unions know the financial story of their members. You know that someone's going to buy a house probably even before they found a realtor. And so you being able to provide a good pipeline of potential well-qualified buyers is a way to win business. And then the third, I think you also need to build a reputation, and you can do that very easily. Most credit unions have realtors already in their membership base, regardless of their segment. They either have, either they're a realtor themselves or they're married to someone that's a realtor in your segment. Start with those people. They're already committed to the credit union movement. You don't have to sell them on the value of people helping people, and you can start building that relationship. You can build that database by simply having, realtor monthly, and give them a card for registering, or give them a coffee, gift card for coffee or something. Build that database. Start with those folks. That's an easier place to start than trying to go out and win business off the street.
All right, well, Steve, you're one of the best. You truly are, and I appreciate your thoughts on this matter.
Absolutely.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time today, and thank you again for sponsoring today's session.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be a great one. Great topic.
Thank you very much. Let's start making the change over to today's main topic. So first off, I want to focus on recent history. The housing market from a few years ago has really completely flipped. Thinking back to 2020 and trying to establish background for our conversation today, I'd like to just mention a few points. Record low mortgage rates that made homes significantly more affordable, which kind of prompt Americans to flock to densely packed areas, such as cities, to more suburbs and exurbs. So again, mortgage rates push people further out of the cities. The few homes made available were quickly bid above their listing price and sold in just a few days. And the third point I make about recent history is that buying a home quickly became a fantasy for those really who could afford the time, the energy, and people who had the additional amount of money to put into the white hot market. Again, our recent history has established that it was a white hot market driven by interest rates that pushed a lot of people out of the ability to, or prevented people from buying homes. Now, it's safe to say that the housing frenzy is over, for the most part. Demand is still strong, but inventory is still low. And as we look at our current market, U.S. home sales dropped again in July for the sixth straight month. What normally is one of the busier times of the year for purchase transactions is slowing to an almost crawl. Perhaps that's an extreme statement, and I admit that perhaps is an extreme statement, but it's still somewhat true. And to add to all of this, yesterday's new home sales report showed that we were at a lower level than we were during the recession of the early 2000s. But it's not all doom and gloom, and I like focusing on positive aspects of things. Perhaps there are some signs that our market is shifting. National home price appreciation continues to slow, which I think is a good thing. In July, national home price appreciation was 10.8%. And that was down from 15% in June. And really, when we look at the all-time, 15% in February, and then we look at the all-time high, we are really around 18%. I think to add to this positive trend is that new home inventory is up. There's a significant new home inventory, which means that buyers that were once priced out of the market could very well see their ability to buy new homes become a little bit more readily accessible. On top of that, we very well may see new home builders providing additional incentives to purchase the surplus. I think the biggest question we hope to answer today is whether or not it's still a good time to buy, and what needs to occur to get more buyers into the market. This brings me to our panel of experts. I'd like to introduce them to everyone. First up, I'd like to introduce everyone to Kathy Piccinini with the Jason Mitchell Group, serving the San Francisco Bay Area as well as Phoenix. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Next up, I like to introduce everyone to Naomi and Carlos Pera, both with the Jason Mitchell Group, operating out of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Carlos and Naomi, if you guys come on camera, I'd greatly appreciate it. How y'all doing?
Hello.
Good.
We are great. Very happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And last but most certainly not least, Carlos Espinoza with Espinoza Homes Group of Compass, serving the DC metro area. I think we agree that you're Carlos number 2. Carlos number 2, welcome.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Excited for this discussion.
Excellent. All right. Well, everyone, welcome. I think we have a group of people that are eager to hear what you have to say. So let's just dive right in. Sound good?
Let's do it.
Great.
All right. Perfect. Perfect. So I'm going to preface this first question by saying, a few weeks ago, Fannie Mae published their home purchase sentiment index based off June's data. Now, this is a metric that provides a glimpse into consumer confidence from buyers and sellers. Now, month over month, we're seeing these numbers drop. Fewer and fewer buyers are saying that's a good time to buy. And really the same thing goes with sellers. They're saying it's not a good time to sell. Here's the question. Metrics are one thing. I'm really, again, this is about your personal opinions, what you're seeing in your market. And I want to provide some background real quick. We chose this group because you represent from coast to coast, major metropolitan areas, major markets, right? We purposely did that. So from your viewpoint, what's really happening out there? How are buyers and sellers feeling? Is it still a good time to buy? Feel free to jump right in.
We believe it's a great time to buy. People are not having to have a large amount of money to purchase their home. Yes, their interest rates are a little higher, but they don't need. The first question we had when the market was a seller's market was, do you have $50,000 to purchase a home outside of your closing costs, outside of your down payment? Because we were seeing offers even up to $200,000 in the Frisco area, and in your just average area, like let's just say Arlington, Grand Prairie area, DeSoto, we were seeing offers above $45,000 above list price, and these people had to pay this amount if it didn't appraise. So VA buyers were the ones that were suffering the most due to this market, because even if they had the cash, they were waiving the cash everywhere. But because of that VA and FHA mandatory clause, the sellers were not accepting their offers. So it is absolutely a great time to buy. That is my perspective, our perspective at this moment.
Yeah, some of our initial conversations with our clients is that, do you have the extra cash? And if they didn't, it changed the whole way of us connecting with them, educating them, even the kind of home that they would go. Knowing if they had that money was kind of, okay, this is the direction we can go. So we think right now, that it's a great time because you're not paying 100,000 over asking price for a house.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's the perspective from Dallas. What about like, the Bay, Phoenix, or the DC area? Carlos Espinoza, Kathy, how do you guys feel about, or how do your buyers or sellers feel?
Well, my sellers are more realistic on their price point, which is very helpful because they're not expecting to go way above market value. My buyers are pretty excited, as well as what Carlos and Naomi said. They don't have to come in with that extra amount of money, which is a lot of people don't have that extra money. And then the price points here in the Bay Area are quite a bit higher as it is already. So, but buyers are still buying and sellers are more realistic on pricing. So that whole transparent pricing is definitely working here in the Bay Area.
Okay. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and what we're seeing here in the Washington, D.C. area, we are getting that question a lot, like from our buyers or from our prospects, is it a good time to buy? Right. So that's really one of the top questions that we get asked. And I always say that there's no bad time to buy. And it really depends on the buyer's goals, right? Because if someone's considering buying, right, and what's their alternative? Is it renting? Because rents have increased 20% this year. Rents are equally as expensive, right? So if they don't buy, the alternative is to rent at a big premium. That doesn't make sense for most people. And I truly believe in the power of home ownership, right? Building wealth for the future, having something that's their own, being able to benefit from some of the tax savings that they can get, on the interest that they pay on their mortgage, right? So, that's something that we try to educate our prospects and say, hey, if you're renting right now, well, guess what? Next year when your lease is up, they're going to most likely increase the rent. So why don't we try to get something that's fixed, right, moving forward, and explain to them all the benefits. And, I always say too, one of the rule of thumbs for folks looking to buy is, how long do you feel you're going to live in the area for? If you feel that you're just going to be here in the DC area probably for a year, maybe 2 at most, then I would say maybe it's best to continue renting until you have a little bit more certainty as to what you're going to do. But if you feel you're going to be here at least 3 years, it makes absolute sense to buy something, put down some roots, start building for the future, and then hopefully have a good investment, or at the very least have something that's your own.
And Carlos, you brought up some great points. Everyone brought up some great points. And I'm gonna bounce around to them if you don't mind. But I'm gonna first start with Carlos Espinoza. I mean, you brought up how rent has increased significantly. I mean, that report really just came out yesterday. How really even the pace of rent increasing has outpaced how quickly people's wages are increasing, right? So the number of people who in this report had said, hey, I'm at that point where I'm not even gonna be able to make my next month's rent because it's increased that much. I mean, it blew my mind, because yes, mortgage rates have increased significantly, but it's still more affordable than renting in many places. And I also appreciate the fact that you brought up how transitory DC is, right? People come and go, right? And so I appreciate the fact that you asked them that question: how long are you going to be here, and you advise them on how long they're going to whether or not it's actually a good idea to buy. So I love that. Now, Kathy, you brought up something, and I'm going to come to it. And Naomi, you also brought up something that you brought up, it being like a seller's market and bidding over price. And Kathy, you brought up transparent pricing, which I'm going to come to both of them, but I just want to take a step back, if that's